Attention men, here's an important new podcast you need to be listening to.
So this whole issue about prostate and prostate health and all the challenges that we're having with it, but no one's talking. So that's the reason why I started this podcast, so we can talk, so we can get understanding. I understand I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical individual. I'm just an ordinary, normal guy who had some issues to say, hey, let's talk about this thing.
P is for Prostate with Odell Cleveland. Download anytime where you get your podcasts. And join for the full podcast at www.patreon.com/Odell Cleveland.
Coming up in this episode of Finding Common Ground.
I really went to bed thinking we were going to win. I'm not a betting man, but when I went to bed and I woke up, I'm like, oh my God, how did this happen? And not just that we got beat real bad.
I learned more in this election of what not to do than I did what to do.
I look at the black vote differently, but for years I was saying that the Democratic Party takes the black vote for granted and the Republican Party ignores the black vote. The black vote's caught between a political rock and a hard place.
There are two sides to every coin.
How do we deal with racial issues when they affect relationships?
Finding common ground on all those issues that we come against.
There's black and there's white.
And I think as Christians, we have to learn how to get together because we're not in heaven.
I've met more interesting people just by God just bringing them in.
Republicans and Democrats.
But a lot of times when it comes to race and it comes to culture and it comes to perception, even as Christians, we don't always understand. We look at it through our lenses.
There's Bill.
I grew up in a suburb of Cleveland called Parma.
Any black people in Parma?
There was not one.
Not one black person,
Not
Bill?
one.
Come on,
Not
Bill.
one.
You got to have one. Token black person? A token?
And there's Odell.
I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, public housing, single mom, divorced single mom of 4 kids. And I came up through segregation and all that kind of stuff.
If a black person drove through the town, the police would stop and escort them out.
Bill and Odell are finding common ground.
A part of what we have to do is listen to each other, find the common ground, and question, not questioning you like you're on a witness stand, but questioning you for better understanding. Father God, we just say thank you for your grace and mercy, and just thank you for this country we live in, the United States of America, where we can be our authentic selves. We can have the right to vote. It was a time when my ancestors didn't have the right to vote. So I take the right to vote very seriously, God. So God, we just thank you and we praise you. In Jesus' name we pray and believe. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Dear Heavenly Father, just thank you for the election, and rough and tumble as it was. It's kind of quiet now after the election, and we're waiting to see where this country is going. Lord, we lift up our guest, Kathy Kirkpatrick, as someone who has dedicated and volunteered her time to run the Guilford County Democratic Party, which is an all-consuming position, particularly during an election year. We just lift up her and her partner, and thank you for her commitment. Amen.
So, Bill, we're going to welcome Katie to the show, of course, but I don't know how the Republican Party, GOP, Guilford County GOP, had the school board seat, and you all lost the school board seat. How do you lose something that was given to you? I don't have the answer. The good-looking black Democrat, maybe Katie can help us out, or do you know, how do you lose something you had, Bill? Because we have the Guilford County Democratic Party who won everything, well, and your previous party lost everything. What's going on, man?
Well, the voters decide, and the people have spoken, and 19,240 people voted for David Coates, and congratulations to him for winning a race.
Well, how much money did David spend?
I don't know, a couple thousand maybe.
About $2,830.15.
Maybe, yeah.
And then the Republican candidate spent about $10,000, and the unaffiliated candidate spent about $68,000.
Mm-hmm.
And spent all that money for a seat that you had and you fought over and you lost?
Yeah, it is something. Let's bring in Katie. Katie?
Hey.
Please come in and, first off, let's introduce yourself. Let yourself introduce yourself. That didn't come
All
out right, but you know what I mean.
I got you. I'm Katie Kirkpatrick, also known as Kathy Kirkpatrick. I go by both. My wife changed my name almost 40 years ago when we got together, so it's Katie Kirkpatrick. I am chair of the Guilford County Democratic Party, and I think I know what happened with David Coates. He busted his butt and knocked on almost every single door available to him to talk to people and to say, "Here's who I am. Here's what I believe, and here's why I think that that you should vote for me for the school board." And it worked. It worked. He was able to bring home the victory on that.
Yeah, door knocking is meeting the constituent on their territory and getting to meet them face to face is key to these races.
Well,
Absolutely.
Odell, the good-looking Black Democrat. I'm hurt, Katie. I'm hurt. We got beat. But all hope is not lost. Katie, has the Guilford County Democratic Party ever sued someone, kicked them out of office, got a special intervention from Raleigh to put them off of office, and did all that and still lost the seat?
No, we have not, actually. We don't need special dispensation to win. We win legitimately and on our own. So we don't need the help, and we don't need the cheating.
There you go.
To take the seats here in Guilford County.
Ooh, tell us how you really feel.
No, she's right. He won. He won by the votes. And like she said, the voters decided.
Well, Katie, my good friend, one of my best friends, Bill Goebel, he was a Republican, and the Republican Party kicked him out. Then they sued him. Then they censored him. And I don't think they're going to let him come back. So he's an unaffiliated. Could we, maybe, if he wanted to, will he be accepted in the Royal Democratic Party who just win in Guilford County?
Well, Bill and I have talked about some of this, but I don't know. As long as you're donating to Virginia Fox and showing up to some MAGA Republican events and things like that, Bill, I think you're going to have some work to do to be fully accepted by the party.
Yeah, I don't think people are going to get over that.
Yeah.
The Virginia Fox thing was the result of Roy Carroll, who's a personal friend. He invites me to all of his fundraisings.
Did you get invited to this year's Christmas party?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, you chose to go, though.
Yeah,
that's a choice you made.
I did. And
so,
she was
Katie, you're rough, girl. Katie's like, listen, this is real out here. Politics is
It is, and Bill knows that I like him personally.
Oh,
I mean,
I don't have it.
Yeah, and we have talked about this. So this isn't anything that we haven't talked about.
This has been
but if you asked if he wants to be fully embraced by the Democratic Party, he's going to have to cut some strings with MAGA Republicans. I'm not talking about all Republicans as centrists, and I'm not saying we can't talk and work across the aisle, but I think there are some very moral differences within the MAGA movement.
Yeah,
that we need to have conversations about, and as long as you're supporting that, then I don't think Democrats are really going to fully be trusting. We've been burnt. We've been burnt a couple times by people flipping parties, and I think that's a very real hurt still here. Happened a couple of times in the last 2 years for the Democrats here in Guilford and in the state. So I think there's going to be some real trust issues with that.
I can't remember the one in Guilford.
He was county commissioner, and honestly, his name is out of my head. Brandon Gray took a seat.
As it should be.
Yeah, as it should be. I forgot his name, but
he's gone. He's gone.
Not
he's gone to Georgia.
Right?
No, he left the state.
He's gone to Georgia. Yeah.
Oh,
Katie, let me just stand to Virginia Fox. Let me finish that thought. I went with Roy. I didn't know her background. I worked in the House of Representatives for a Democrat, Congressman Charlie Vanek, that did the Jackson-Vanek amendment that allowed 1.2 million Soviet Jews to leave Russia. And so I've kind of been involved in both sides. My grandfather was a Democrat for 27 years, councilman in Ohio. And I became a Republican here because, quite frankly, when I got here, all my friends were Republican. They invited me to go in. When I started visiting the Republican Party, I was trying to absorb what the dynamics were in the meetings. I'm a business guy, so you go into a meeting, or I'll go into one of my new companies that want to use our services, and you may have 5 or 6 people, and you're just trying to figure out, okay, who's on first, what's on second, who is a player, who's not, where are the pinch points, all that. You're just trying to analyze that so that you don't step on any landmines if you can help it. And so I found being quiet is probably a good thing for a long time. And I was that way with the Republicans, and I was trying to figure out exactly what they were. Were they moderate? Were they MAGNA? And a lot of them didn't show their signs at first, and it took a while. And there are this local party is full of MAGNAs, full of them, and there's no room for moderates. Period.
Right.
Period. And I don't agree with everything they say, and I don't agree with everything Democrats say. I mean, not that I cherry pick all the time, but there's some things that I'm pretty passionate about, and other ones I'm like, okay, that may not have to go down that road. So back to Virginia Fox. All I knew is she was a Republican. I knew nothing about her philosophy. I knew nothing about where she stood on issues. And so I thought, what better way to go find out than listen to her speak at one of my friend's house and listen and maybe learn and then make judgment. Well, since that time, I found out some of the things she believes in, and I don't believe in them. I mean, I absolutely don't. I agree she supports Israel. I'm good with that. But after that, it gets very narrow, if not any. It cost me $250 to get in the door to do that. And I'm willing to pay $250 to get in the door to do it. Now, I gave $250 to Dave Robinson in 2019 because he was running lieutenant governor. Didn't know who he was, same kind of thing. Wanted to hear this guy. I realized that the guy is a lot of noise and no substance. I would like to ask for my $250 back from both of those individuals, which will never happen. But I learned a lesson on that people will hold that against you just because you're trying to learn. And that's their prerogative. They can do that. I was just trying to learn, and they asked me for $500. I didn't do that. I gave them $200 or $250 or whatever it was because I felt, I'm going to go and have a couple drinks and eat somebody's food. And as a guest, if I'm going to go to his house without giving a donation, I think Roy would look at me and go, "What's your issue? Well, why are you coming to my house? Invited, my invite. I asked you to give $500. You gave nothing."
Yeah, it seems to me there's cheaper ways to figure out where somebody stands, like their voting record, rather than supporting them with money before you know who. I mean, Virginia Fox was MAGA before MAGA was cool. I mean, she really was. So, live and learn. I'm hoping you can figure out that voting records, and we'll give you all the information you need.
Nobody's talking about all the money I gave Stein, or I gave Ludgren, or I've given Mo Green. No one's talking about that. I gave 10 times more than that.
Well, that's nice. That's good. But here's the issue. Again, you asked about being accepted into the Democratic Party. If you're going to be supporting Robinson and people like Robinson and Fox, then don't expect to be fully trusted.
Yeah.
Simply because we have been burned. Yeah. And there's always that possibility. And that's, when you vote somebody in, you expect them to hold certain values. And when they flip on you, it's a shock.
Yes.
And it really does leave a mark.
Yeah.
A permanent mark, or a long-term mark anyway.
You know what I love about Katie? Katie is very honest with me and tells it like it is.
Absolutely.
And I love that because it allows me to see with a lens maybe how other people are thinking of me. And not that I'm going to be defensive about it, but lessons learned. I learned more in this election of what not to do than I did what to do.
Well, that's very valuable too. That's as valuable as knowing what to do is knowing what not to do.
Yeah.
So.
And part of that is my checkbook.
Well, Bill,
I'll give you that, Bill.
Bill, let me introduce you to my world. I'm sure Katie may or may not know, but years ago, I've been a lifelong Democrat, but I don't run for political office, and I don't go to the Democrats' conventions, anything like that, for no other reason because I just don't go. I'm blessed to sit in a very, very influential seat at my place employment at a very large mega church. But years ago, I endorsed someone nobody didn't know, Mark Walker, right? And I got so much pushback because people said, Odell, as a Democrat and a leader in the community, you endorsed this guy, and your endorsement, many believed, helped push Mark over the line. And I had so many people come to me, prominent Democrats, just prominent people, get Odell back in line. What's he doing and everything? And it just ticked me off, right? And I'm like, well, who's to tell me how I should vote? And so I don't subscribe to that. So again, I was on a TV show, Swing State, for a while back, and I was pushing for a no Biden, no Trump for 2024, and I was on there co-hosting with Mark, friend of mine, and that's what kind of got him in trouble because one day he agreed with me. Now, my whole thought was this. I look at the black vote differently because I see the black vote, Katie and Bill, like this, that for a while, and it's changed now because things have changed, but for years I was saying that the Democratic Party takes the black vote for granted, and the Republican Party ignores the black vote. The black vote's caught between a political rock and a hard place. And I said if Odell had a magic wand, he would have all black people be 50% Democrats, 15% Republicans, and 35% unaffiliated independents, because that would make the black vote strong. Everybody had to work toward the black vote. Well, in a crazy way, some of that came true in the Trump election, and I hated it. Not that I hate Trump per se, but I hate the fact that he got elected because I don't think Trump deserved the votes. But then who am I to say who votes for who, if that makes sense? So I don't know. I don't know. This election hurts. I woke up. I really thought, Katie, that we were going to win. I really went to bed thinking we were going to win. I mean, I'm not a betting man, but when I went to bed and I woke up, I'm like, oh my God, how did this happen? And not just that we got beat, but we got beat, Bill, we got a foot now behind, we got beat real bad. So I don't know. We're going to have to do something.
You didn't get beat in Guilford County, Katie.
No,
Katie,
not get beat in Guilford County.
60% went for Harris. In fact, Katie, I pulled up the records. I was analyzing my results by precinct, but I was also looking at Guilford County. And, I don't know how many total races there were, but it's more than 20, I'm sure, closer to 30. And only 4 went Republican. Everything else went Democrat. And they went Democrat by big amounts, 20%.
And the 4 that went Republican are not solely Guilford County.
That's right.
That's the gerrymandering from our General Assembly. We had to fight. I mean, the gerrymandering is unreal, and it really. I mean, Guilford County went for those candidates, but you can't. Guilford County alone cannot pull from the myriad of other counties, of very red counties that are gerrymandered into those House races.
Absolutely right. And that, it brings up Ohio. I'm from Ohio. When I was up there just before election, there was I think Proposition 1, I think it was called, and it was to stop gerrymandering. In order to get that on the ballot, they had to collect 400 and some thousand signatures for people wanting that to be on the ballot, that a citizens group would be responsible. And I don't know how they were going to pick the citizens. That could have been political. But a citizens group was going to decide the boundaries as opposed to these maps that end up causing all these problems. And so they collected 535,000. So they collected 135,000 more than they needed, got on the ballot, and it lost. And I'm like, how does that happen? How does that happen?
Well, how does Trump get elected? Katie, question for you. Have you ever met Chris Meadows?
No, I'm trying to think. I think I may have met him at a poll one time and just kind of said, hey, and just a quick hello, nothing serious at all. And I can't even guarantee that happened. I'm kind of remembering that it might have.
Okay. Robbie Perkins says he's running for mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Some other people who've been on the show say they're running for mayor. your thoughts on the next mayor of Greensboro, North Carolina, where the Democrats has a strong, what percentage wise, we're like 60 or 7% of the vote. What's your perspective?
Well, I definitely think that we can't take it for granted. Number one, we have to make sure that we're listening. And I think there's some issues in Greensboro, and that we need to actually keep an eye on. Affordable housing, number one.
Mm-hmm.
The homeless situation, number two, or switch those back and forth. And there's some other issues that we need to think about. And I think we need to make sure that our policies are strong and that we're actually thinking about how we're going to address the needs of the people. And you can't just say, I'm a Democrat, vote for me. You've got to say, I'm a Democrat. And as such, here's what I believe. Here's my plan for affordable housing in Greensboro. Here's my plan to help the unhoused in Greensboro. And here's my plan for economic development and all of the things that we know the next mayor is going to have to address. And if you start just taking it for granted, then we end up with an issue. And you may end up with a Democratic mayor, but you might not end up with a Democratic mayor that's going to be good for the city. And so we need to make sure that we're holding folks accountable for actually having plans, for knowing what the city needs, and for knowing how to address it, and having, and it's not just the mayor. We've got city council. I mean, everybody's up for election in Greensboro City in 2025. So there's some real work to be done. And if Democrats want the vote, then they're going to have to get out there and do it. And it starts with making sure that policies are not just pie in the sky. Here's what we want to do, but here's how we're going to do it. And it's feasible and research based. And here's what other cities have done. And here's how they've done it. And yeah, okay, it may cost us a little bit of money. But if we want to do these things and truly be the city we know we can be, then we're going to have to put our money where our mouth is. And I think that's going to take some tough decision making. There's a lot of houses being built, but how many of them are affordable? I think that's something we need to think about in the city. We've got, as I said, an unhoused population. We've got some psychological and drug issues going on. And we've got, that's just all playing into it. Then we've got economic issues that aren't severe. I mean, Greensboro City is not, we're not, just dying over here, but it is definitely an economic development plan, and making sure that that's happening and continuing to build the city up in the ways that we've started the renewal projects and things that we've got going downtown. And I mean, there's just a lot to think about. And if we start taking the vote for granted just because we are in the majority, then we have a problem, because we're in the majority actually in the country. And you see what happens if we're not addressing the needs of the people.
Well, economic development, you're right, but the RRC is going to be a big deal. The RRC, I don't know if that's a scapegoat or that's a whipping child or what, but it's almost like the stars are starting to line about the RRC, and the RRC went from one service to taking on something that I'm sure the city or someone asked them to do to 24/7. And when it didn't work out, it's like, and I've been there with a nonprofit I started, Welfare Reform, years ago, where you do a good job doing whatever you're doing, and folks say, can you do more? And sometimes more is not always beneficial, to say the least. How do you think that situation may or may not work out?
Well, we're going to have to see. I definitely think there's some issues there that need to be addressed. But I don't think you can just take an outsider look and, I've walked through the place. Okay, fine. And I donate, and do things. But I don't think anybody from an outside perspective can really say, here's what needs to happen. We hear all sorts of things. So what it's going to take is, so I come from an administrative background. I was a principal in elementary and middle schools here in Guilford County and in Durham. And you don't just say, well, here's what I think is going on. You find out what's going on. You dig into it. You look at the data. You look and you do your evaluation, and you say, all right, now based on the data, here's what is going on. Here's what's happening. Now, what does research say about addressing this specific aspect and this specific aspect and this specific aspect? And what do we need to do to have a comprehensive wraparound plan or program, not just for IRC. That IRC would probably definitely be a component of it if it's focused and I'm not going to say well run because again,
Right.
I think you're right. They've been asked to do a lot of things that maybe were not in their wheelhouse. But that can be a component of it. It can't be the only component. And so IRC does have its issues, but I think every organization does. But the fact that the lens is on it right now is maybe bringing to light some things that may or may not be as major as we think they are, or maybe even bigger. I don't know. I'm not in a position to make that call. But I do know that if you're not evaluating and with a really eye on improvement, continuous improvement, if you're not evaluating for improvement, if you're not really looking at what's going on and what the data is saying and coming up with theories on why that's happening and working on research ways to address it, then you're not ever going to be able to solve the problem. And that's it for just about everything. You can say that about every issue we have.
Well, in business, that's what we're taught to do. Exactly what you just said. Go and look at it. Go on the shop floor, see what's going wrong. Talk to the people working there every day that are dealing with it. Then go back and look at your data. And then we also say, go and look at companies that have solved that problem, how they solved it. And what did they do? Because this homeless thing isn't unique to Greensboro. It's all over the country. So there's got to be some city. It's kind of like me looking at funding sources for schools. I looked at state, federal, and local, and I wanted to see if our local was in line with the other 100 counties. And so I analyzed it, and there's data out there. It took a long time to find the data, but I found the data. And there's organizations that will provide that data free of charge once you get to learn them. That's what I meant about I learned a lot, who to go to get the information. And I found that roughly the average is about $3,400 each per student that the counties are paying statewide. We're at $3,620, so we're doing a little bit better. But I noticed two counties, and this is what happens with business people. You look at anomalies, and there are two of them doing $8,000. And I'm thinking they're not taxing because people will be fleeing that county. So I went down and visited superintendents, and I said, "How are you doing it?" And they said, "We have a $1.6 billion endowment." I said, "How in the world did you do that?" And he explained how he did it. And he says, "We just restrict that and we just pull the interest off and supplement it with schools, and we do other things with it in the community." So our endowment is $20 million. So I wanted to go in and build our endowment up and go to Honda Jet and say, "Hey, can you give me $100,000 a year for 5 years? We'll restrict the money, but the interest will pull off. And if you want it designated for aviation mechanics or nurses, we can do that." I did that with scouting all the time. We raised a lot of money. And so I said, let's put an all-star team together. Let's get Kathy Manning. She's going to have a little time on her hands. She's not going to be Congresswoman. And she helped raise the money for a hangar. And I don't want Kathy to be the chairman unless she really wants to. But certainly I want her to be opening doors and lean on Nito Quabain and lead on, just go get a nonpartisan group that wants to help. And the idea is, the concept is a couple things. One is you're going to plant a seed for a tree that you're never going to sit under and have shade of. But you're also setting something up for generations and generations that we can use. And, everybody I've talked to said, "That's great. Let's do it." So yesterday I was at the last school board meeting. And
they let you in this school board meeting?
Well, security did check me out, though.
Okay, good.
Most people.
He's a good man. He deserves to go.
Yeah, but they made me stand in the back. But
okay,
you just didn't get there early enough.
Yeah, you're right. You've been to those.
Yes.
And I didn't mind standing. But I happened to walk by, and David Coates was there, and we stopped and talked. In fact, we have a picture. We were shaking hands. Ivan Cutler took the picture, and. And I said, "Congratulations. I'm really happy you got your position." And he said, "Well, thank you. I am too." And we talked about the election and everything. And, there was no hard feelings whatsoever. I sincerely mean, I'm happy that he won, and I'll support him in any way. And he said, "Your idea of endowment is something that is very good. We need to go further on that." And he said, "Just so you know, I'm a lawyer. If you would have been on the school board, you couldn't have done that. It would have been a conflict of interest." to go around as a politician to companies and ask for money, even if it's for the school.
Wow.
And he said it would have been, you probably could have done it, but somebody would have called you on it. He said, being a private citizen, you can do whatever you want. So, my wife and I, before the election, she said, God's opened so many doors for us to get to this point that we had never anticipated. We didn't even plan on running a year and a half ago. But and she says, what happens if God closes the door on election day and we don't get the election? I have a smart wife, and you do too. And I said, let's think about that and pray over it. So we came to a total peace that if he closed that door, he's been so faithful and opened other ones, closes that one, that's okay. There's going to be something else to happen. And so we're going to take through the holidays and then decide what we want to do next.
Well, Bill,
I love that idea and fully supportive of that, and would definitely be amenable to helping with that in any way I can. As a private citizen or as chair. I don't know, I know there's being chair of the Democrats that just kind of 501c3, and it just sometimes it's iffy if others can work with us, but as a personal private citizen and as a retired educator, teacher, and principal in Guilford County Schools, that's something I can definitely buy into.
Yeah, and you'd be perfect to bring in to a meeting like that. You don't have a bunch of people, maybe 3 or 4 of us, and make our pitch. So I'll keep that in mind if we get to that point. That thank you for that offer. Speaking of that, when is your term up, and tell us about the Democratic Party, how it's structured,
okay,
and all that, because I don't know.
So first of all, the Democrats are not a election only organization. We exist to win elections for Democrats. Our job is to put highly qualified Democrats into position to win office and to support them through that and do everything we can to make sure that that's happening. But, you don't just pop up and say, every 4 years or every, you just show up in November and say, here we are. So we actually start in January with our Precinct organization. And a lot of folks don't understand what that means, but each group of people in an area, wherever you vote, your polling site on election day, that is a precinct, and you are the only people in your precinct vote at that polling site. So, for example, I'm in G39, which means Greensboro 39, and so it's a small group within Guilford County.
How many households do you think it would be?
Well, it depends on the precinct, but a couple thousand. We're not talking a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But we have 167 precincts in Guilford County.
Wow.
So each precinct has their own polling site, and we want to organize each and every precinct. Organizing meaning that we're in contact with the people, and so we have the chair of or president of G39. We have a vice chair or vice president. You call it either way. And then we have like a secretary/treasurer, and we have members. And we through those members, we work toward getting our message out. I apologize for that. Our message out. We work on getting our volunteers together. I mean, that's our nut. That's our nutshell right there is our precinct, or is our precincts. Everything works through our precincts. And precincts are important not only for that, but if we have, like with Tracy Clark, when Ashton Clemens said, I'm stepping down at age 57 and I'm not going to run again, well, then we had to fill that. So the organized precincts within that district, the House 57 district, got together and then decided, all right, well, Tracy Clark, we were going to elect Tracy Clark to fill the remainder of Ashton Clemens' term. And then we're also going to elect somebody, and it turned out to be Tracy Clark, to be on the ballot for that. So your precincts are not just about organizing and volunteering and communication. They actually have a lot of power when people step down. So when someone passes away on the county commissioners, the people who are in that county commissioning district, they're the ones that will then elect the person who replaces them. If somebody steps down, it's the same thing. So your precincts actually have a lot of power. And so to have an organized precinct means you actually have a voice and what's going on within not only the party, but within the government when it comes to that. So then we organize our precincts, we have our convention, we elect our officers, and my term is up this year. So it's every 2 years. And so our officers board, we have our chair, which is me. And then we have first vice chair, second vice chair. Then we have our third vice chair, which is communications. Second vice chair is training. First vice chair is organization and elections. And then we also happen to have chairs for each of our areas. So Greensboro vice chair, High Point vice chair, rural. Those chairs are directly responsible for organizing precincts within those areas. We also have secretary treasurer, and then the other people that sit on the board, officers board, are presidents of our caucuses. So our African American caucus, our LGBTQ caucus, the president of our progressives and our Democratic women, our Jewish caucus. All of our different caucuses also sit on that board, as well as our executive director. And those are the people that make basic decisions, the budget decisions, how we're going to spend our money, our facilities, any major decisions that need to be made on minutia type things go through that office. Do anything big, officers, our state executive committee, all of that gets elected through our convention or through our county executive committee. But there's a lot of power within the party, and it's a lot of organizing that goes on to get ready for November, and to be prepared, and to call our volunteers, and to make sure that we have the apparatus in place. So one of the big jobs we have right now is to identify highly qualified candidates to run for mayor and city council of, for Greensboro next year, and any other areas that might have municipals next year.
So, Katie, thank you. Question for you, Odell, who's a Democrat who lives in Guilford County, but not a member of the Guilford County Democratic Coalition. People have said to me, Odell, you're not black enough, whatever the heck that means. Can someone like Odell be not Democratic enough? I remember meeting a good associate who was real big Democrat. Odell's a big Democrat, and his name's Pete, and he was a chair, a precinct chair. And he just fell out when I endorsed Congressman Mark Walker. It's just like, and it's like, yeah, but I'm a Democrat. So is there a place in the Guilford County Democrat Party for someone like me who don't vote straight ticket Democrats, who more or less would speak their mind, but they're Democrat? But is there a place in the party for me, not trying to run for office, none of that? Is there a place in the Democratic Party for a Odell type Democrat?
Well, I think so. Now, as you said, not running for office, not being one of the
not trying to jump in and be an officer,
right.
just being Odell,
right.
A member who want to voice his opinion, and he won't vote straight ticket, the Pete's of the world, I'm not going to say Pete's last name, who got so upset with me, and just is like, Pete, you get as mad as you want to and turn red if you want to. I don't care about that, because I'm still going to vote and do what Odell's going to do. Am I Democratic enough to be a Democrat?
Right. So that's one thing about our country, is that you get to choose how you vote.
There you go.
You absolutely get to choose how you vote. And you can voice that or not. And voicing it doesn't make you less Democratic than not voicing it. You could stay silent and vote for Mark Walker and nobody would know. But voicing it doesn't make you less Democratic. People may wonder what you're thinking about and why you're thinking that way, and wondering, what values he espouses that you also espouse,
right,
that are making you to endorse somebody that, I think is an anathema to most quote unquote Democratic principles or ideas, ideology. And so someone might question you about that and say, what about him? What values is he holding that you also support? But I think those conversations have to be there. And I don't think that we're in our place in our country. And I think we've gotten to a place that we're not able to talk. And that's being a real problem.
I agree. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. So if we're not willing to listen to our own people, how are we going to listen to those across the aisle that feel even stronger about a more, bigger group of people.
Exactly.
So yeah, now party policy would say no. You if you're running for office or if you're an officer within the party, we must endorse and be very supportive of only Democrats
Right.
that are on our ticket. It doesn't mean we can't talk with others, and that as an individual, we can't say, I'm going to vote for Bill Goebel as opposed to David Coates.
No,
I'm
we
going to vote for
understand
Mark
that.
Walker as opposed to, So it's in individuals, but I think if we're saying there's not a place in the party for somebody, then we are just saying that the party's not for people, and that's just absolutely not true.
You're right,
It's
because
absolutely not true.
the Odells, Clevelands of the world, not trying to be funny, but sit in very powerful, influential seats, push for what they believe in, and rightfully so. But as a lifelong Democrat, I think that if the Democratic parties, and I'll just use my example with Pete, instead of spending all his time, energy, and effort making me try to think and believe the way he thinks and believe, says, okay, Odell, let's leverage on what we can do together. And that's what my argument is, like,
finding common ground.
Well, kind of finding common ground, but don't shame me into saying what's wrong with me because I don't believe everything he believes or thinks the way he thinks. And it really, we had a somewhat emergent friendship that it really broke it apart. It really broke it apart. So I still like him, but it's and especially someone Black, and I'm still a good looking Black guy on the show, right?
The last time I checked.
Okay, good. So don't tell me as a Black person how Black people should vote when you're not Black, or even when you're Black, because I think nobody's monolithic. I can't tell you how white people vote. I can't tell you how Jewish people vote. I can't tell you how anybody's voting. I'm not going to tell you how to vote. So don't dare tell me how to vote.
I'll tell you what I found refreshing, and one of the things I learned, Katie and Odell, and this running for the first time. I met Pete, and I
didn't say Pete's last name. You haven't met Pete. Disclaimer, I did not say Pete's last name, so nobody know who Pete is. It may be Peter Pan or Peter Butter. It's Pete.
And he is passionate, and I love that in him. I think and we had a long talk, and when we started, I said, "You don't like me," and he goes, "No, I don't, and here's why."
Don't even know you.
And we had a great conversation. But I'll tell you a story, Katie. You're going to like this. I was going to people, hey, I'm Bill Goebel. I'd like to, explain a little bit about myself. And the one lady, it was out in Oak Ridge. She said, I'm a school social worker. Do you know what we do? And I've had people come up to, when I go up to them, they would ask me a question about something. And at one time I tried to fake it, and I realized that's not the right thing to do. I said, I don't want to guess. I don't really know what you do. And she says, you lost my vote. I said, okay, I'm good with that. I said, but could you spend a couple minutes and educate me on what a social worker does in the school system? Because I have an image of a social worker that may be totally different. And I've never met a social worker in the school system. We had a delightful conversation for about 35 minutes. And she told me what they do and how important their job is to deal with some of the kids that don't show up on school a lot, or may be living out of their car, or might have other social issues. And they get into the weeds with them, so to speak, and really get involved in their lives. And it was so refreshing to learn that. And I thanked her. I said, listen, I appreciate it. I've learned more this is fantastic. I said, and when she walked away, she was heading into the polls. She says, you got my vote. And I didn't do it for a vote. I really didn't. I did it because I wanted to understand what a social worker did at school from a social worker that's had been there a number of years, like yourself. It's like talking to a principal like yourself. What do you got to deal with every day? I know you got human issues, you got kid issues, you probably got building issues that are really not supposed to be your responsibility. But what do you go through that I, as a school board member, can lend my shoulder to try and help solve? I can't solve everything, but I may be able to build an endowment that will give some funding for things so we can keep high intensity tutoring, which is a very successful program going. And so that's what I found so refreshing. The Pete's of the world that were passionate about what they were doing. And
so we're going to keep talking about Pete.
Oh, I love Pete.
Okay. Well, let me say one thing about the Pete's of the world. Katie, correct me if I'm wrong, and I know you will. In any organization, if people get in position because of seniority or the length of being there, and they believe that their way is the only way, that organization will implode from within, whether it's our church or any other organization. Because if people who've been in positions and been there so long and decide that when other people want to come in and join your group, lifelong Democrat want to join, but it's like, I don't know if you're Black enough, if you're Democratic enough to join, because I don't agree with everything you agree with, then you're really killing the organization instead of making the tent bigger.
No, I see.
Now, that's Odell's argument, and I believe that because I've been there. I understand that part of it. So the Peter Pans of the world, that's fine. But at the end of the day, you might be the problem. Because in your mind, you're going to shape people to make them think and believe. And I'm like, come on in. Our tent is a big tent. And as much as I despise and don't like what happened in the election, it's a lesson to be learned there. It's a lesson to be learned there because Democrats voted for Trump. I don't understand it. Republicans voted for Trump. I understand some of it. Unaffiliated voted for Trump. Black men voted for Trump. I don't understand that. But maybe if they talk to Pete and they weren't Black enough, I'll see why they voted for Trump.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be a lot of dissecting of this.
Exactly. And sometimes some of the dead wood have to get out of organization. We do it in church all the time. You've been in, and Katie, you understand church and you understand choir. Let me just say that.
I do.
The choir director, if you don't sing her song, she's not going to let you sing a solo. She's been there too long. She's been there too long. It's okay. Somebody has to put the bell on the cat. In my Democratic Party, somebody's got to put the bell on the cat.
Katie?
Well, I do think that that I think there's something to be said about evaluating what's going on with this election and with leadership, and not just, I'm just talking about leadership in general, not leadership of our party right now, but leadership in general. When you're talking about people who've been there too long, and if they're not listening, and if they're not responding to fresh ideas and allowing people to express their opinion and to think about things in a different way, then I do agree that we start getting in trouble. And I do think that's one of the things that that helped North Carolina is that our leaders, Josh Stein and
who we love. We love Josh.
We love Josh and Rachel Hunt and Mo Green and Jeff Jackson. I think they actually listened to the people of North Carolina, and they had a plan for developing North Carolina in a way that made people realize, hey, these guys really can bring us along and do something for us as people. I think the party in general this time, the economic message, the economic reality for people was not necessarily addressed in a way that made people comfortable, and the immigration policy as a party, the party of whole. I think those two things we weren't. I don't think people were listening. That the top people were listening.
I agree
about that. And but I think in North Carolina they are listening, and I do think that's why there was such the dichotomy. And I think that we have split ticket a lot in North Carolina. So I think the Democratic bench in North Carolina is very deep, very connected to the people. Not all of the people. Do we have work to do in East Greensboro? When we're talking about city council and our mayor coming up in East Greensboro, do we need to listen to East Greensboro and figure out what's going on and what people in East Greensboro need? Absolutely, because that's an area that needs some development. People need to listen to the people of East Greensboro. Do we need to listen to the people who are unhoused? Do we need to listen to the people who are saying, I can't afford the rent in North Carolina, in Greensboro and Guilford, not Guilford County because that's commissioners, but Greensboro, and if our leaders aren't listening and developing policies that actually address that, then we end up with the shellacking that we got nationwide this time.
Katie, you know what? I just want to say thank you for telling the truth. 2 years ago, Rabbi Fred Gutman pulled a lot of community faith leaders together, and we met at the old Temple Emmanuel Church. And Josh Stein came in along with this other young lady who's a superstar. I forgot her name. The young lady who's over our state Democratic Party, I think.
Anderson Clayton.
Yeah, we have a winner there. And,
Yes.
and I asked Josh a question. He was asking. I said, "Well, Josh, what's your plans?" And he was very not good, not as good as he is now. And he turned around and gave me this answer, like to win, of course. A little smart alecky answer. I tore into his behind. I said, "What the hell you mean? We know you're here to win. You want the black vote, da, da, da. You got to better have a better answer than that." And the whole room got quiet. And it's like, Odell, why did you go in on that? Because if you don't go through the process answering the hard questions, you're not going to. Josh was horrible at first. He was a horrible candidate, not the candidate the way he presented. He was socially awkward. And people don't have to agree with me, but I know what I'm talking about. And then about a year later, I went to a Women's for Stein event over at I forgot, right there, Elm
and Bain.
Yes, exactly. And wasn't a lot of black people in there. So I took a picture and I sent out a post. Where are the black people? Houston, we got a problem. Folk got real upset with me, but I'm like, where are the black people? It wasn't a lot of black people there. And my good friend Chris Meadows, being smart, emailed me, well, there was a lot of black people at Mark Robinson's place. So I want to say, well, Chris, how'd that work out for you? But I'll take the high road on that. But at the end of the day, Josh Stein listened. He evolved as a candidate over the last 2 years. And now when he did his acceptance speech the other day, that my boy was on fire. He got it. So you're absolutely right. He listened and he listened. He listened. But at first, when he first started, it's like, oh, no. And nobody said nothing, but I blasted him because he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready. He's like, I'm showing up. Black folk, black pastors, you should be honored to be in my presence. And I'm like, no, buddy. It doesn't work that way. But he got better and he came to Mount Zion. He came to the church, did well. He even called us, wanted to have a cookout in our parking lot. We said, okay. So if you embrace, but we did have an issue with one of his young people once when they wanted to come to the church and come in and just drop in, come in late, leave early. And we said, no, that's not going to happen. And I think after that conversation, Katie, that young lady, because I said, no, you're just not going to come. They had her not contact me anymore. I guess I'm a Katie where, you just listen, you have to come correct. You have to come correct.
Well, I think we need to give people the grace to grow.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen.
And if we're not doing that, and if we're holding them to where, like you hold me to where I was 10 years ago, oh my goodness, if we hold, Bill to where he was 3 years ago, oh my goodness.
About 3 months ago.
Or Odell or you, just if we hold people to where they were and not allow them the grace to grow and learn, then we're not, then people aren't ever going to try to do the learning.
It's hope for you. It's hope for you, Goebel. It's hope for you. It's hope for you.
Just,
the door's cracking a little bit. As long as you don't come to the Democrat Party trying to run for any office, Bill, come in and serve and donate.
I'm not saying don't run for office, Bill. I'm saying you've got some thinking to do and some
proof. You've
got some ground to prove. That's all I'm saying.
And I'm good with that. I'm good with that. And my whole life, I've had ground to prove, so I'm good with that. I'm humble enough that, and as soon as you say that, you don't sound humble. But I'd like to say I'm humble enough that I have a lot to learn, and I'm willing to learn and do the work to get there. I share a story. When I was head of the Boy Scouts and had 20 councils, everything in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Southern Virginia, I made Odell the diversity chair. And, it gives you an example. You're talking about learning. When I started getting in Boy Scouts to run all that, I knew nothing about scouting. I mean, I didn't know how it was structured. I didn't know how it was funded. I learned that. I was in the pantyhose business. I was asked to come down here. I knew nothing about pantyhose. And after I learned a lot, I shared it with my mom. My mom says, I'm a little worried about you. You know that much about pantyhose. And she was right. But my point is I learned. So I invite him to come to a big meeting.
Him being Odell, the good-looking black guy, just so everybody know.
Invite this good-looking black guy to come to and to speak. There's several hundred people. We were in Raleigh.
All white, 100% white, 99.999% white folks. Yeah.
Yeah. And the head guy, the professional, was Hispanic, and a longtime Hispanic and a minority seriously in scouting. So he's standing in the back of the room. I'm up at the table with the mucky mucks. He gets up and speaks, and he goes, this is a white. All I see is white. Where's all the color in the room? He said, this is white.
I probably said lily white.
Yeah.
Knowing me.
And,
I probably said lily white.
I looked out and you could see a bunch of old white guys go cringing, and the Hispanic guy going, yes, yes. And I said, I love this guy because he's like you. You tell it like it is. It may take us out of our comfort zone. That's okay.
Other people get uncomfortable. Now, tell them like it is. There's two sides of the story. And I can't speak for Katie. I can speak for Odell. People don't like it. People have meetings about you before and after meetings. Mm-hmm. So you have to be strong enough. But I don't mind people being comfortably uncomfortable. I think that's how we grow. But a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people don't like it. I went and spoke at NCCJ one year. And NCCJ, I mean, Ivan Canada invited me.
I love Ivan.
And I made a speech about how the sheriff department, I said police, came and harassed my son in our own yard and the whole story. And so many people got upset. It wasn't appropriate to talk about justice at an NCCJ dinner. You made people uncomfortable, Odell. I'm like, I don't care about all that. That's my family. My kids almost got killed in our front yard, and that's what we're going to talking about. And people are like, well, I don't get it. Because see, Katie, you may know this and you may not. Bill, you may know this and you may not. A lot of people talk a good game, but they really don't care. They wanted me and my wife up there for entertainment. Tell me a sweet story. Tell me a Bed-Stuy story. I ain't telling you a damn thing about a sweet story. I'm telling you the truth. And sometimes the truth make people uncomfortable. And yes, they never invited us back again.
Oh, no. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Katie, we're getting toward the end. We're going to give you last word. And one of the things we ask our guests is, how do you find common ground with people that are the Pete's, I guess, or somebody other than that, you know?
Or the Odells. Don't beat up on Pete. Pete's a good guy. He just don't like Odell.
I don't think Pete listens to the show, so we're okay.
Oh, Peter listened to the show. No, somebody gonna say, Pete, they were talking about you. Because I'm sure Pete talked about me.
Here's what I know. I know that people are people. And I know that if you take the time to listen and to learn, then you can find at least civility, if not friendship. And I think there's probably a lot to be said about civility between groups of people and between individuals that brings peace to the table and ideas to the table. I can't say that I'm necessarily going to be friends with somebody who is a MAGA Republican, because I just think our values are too different. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to be civil. And it does not mean that I'm not going to hear and listen and try to understand. And I think if everybody would do that little piece of it, just strive for civility, then maybe we can move from there. One of the things I know about this election is that it's not over. The fight is not over. The election may be over. And there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there about, oh, it was stolen. Well, no, it wasn't. It was legitimate. Votes were counted. All valid votes are counted. And that rhetoric needs to stop about, oh, it's just the Republicans trying to steal the election. No, it was legitimate. It was legitimately won. Whether we like it or not, it was legitimately won. But what I need from my folks now, we need to stand in the breach. We need to be the bulwark for our party, for our country, for our civilians and our citizens that are going to be severely affected by this election. And you can only stand in the breach if you are willing to stand there strong, be willing to take the punches, but to fight back with civility. I'm not saying agree with everybody, but what I'm saying is if I'm yelling at you and you're yelling at me, then nobody gets heard. And if we're going to stand in the breach, that means we need to do so with strength and civility and peace and anger. I'm not saying there can't be anger. There's got to be anger. There's got to be passion. There's got to be an idea of you are not trampling on my rights.
Amen.
And I'm not going to allow you to trample on the rights of other people. But that doesn't mean I'm going to shoot you down, literally or figuratively. It doesn't mean that I'm going to spew hatred, because I don't think spewing hatred is going to get us anywhere. And so to my folks out there, stand with me in the breach. Stand so with civility and with honor and with dignity, and hold your integrity. Hold your integrity in this whole process as we refuse to allow our rights to be trampled and the rights of others to be trampled. There is work to be done. There's organizing to be done. And we can do this. We can hold folks accountable. And we know that when we fight together, 35.5%, I think, is the critical mass of people to contact senators and representatives and hold people accountable. It worked when Trump wanted to do away with the Affordable Care Act last time. We spoke out and it held. It held. And we can do the same thing on a lot of issues. But if we don't speak in a way that people are actually going to listen, then we might as well just shut up, because we're just blowing into the wind at that point. But we need to stand together in the breach, and we need to hold this together and hold our country together for the next 4 years, and try to come to some sort of understanding and some sort of I'm going back to the word civility, because we're lacking the civility in this country, and that, I think, is the starting point for repair.
Perfectly said. Bill, one last question.
No, I think she well said it. I don't think we have anything.
Well, I have a question for you, Mr. Goebel. Are you going to become a Democrat?
Stay tuned. The next podcast.
We welcome you, Bill Goebel. We welcome you. We'll help you learn and grow.
Yeah, you've given me nothing but affection and guidance and heartfelt thank you for my wife and I both, and I look forward to more of that as we get to know each other on a friendship basis as well.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you. And let's keep the choir all singing from the same hymnal.
We'll work on it, but sometimes you got that person that's like a little off key over there.
I understand. That's Odell. That's Odell.
When I was in the choir, they told me to stop singing, just stand there.
Nah.
You all, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Goodbye. Thanks.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Find Bill and Odell online at thecommonground.show. This podcast is a production of BG Ad Group. Darren Sutherland, executive producer. Doug Harding, creative director. Jacob Sutherland, director. Producers Jason Gentarola and Matt Golden. And Jinrei Zhang, video producer. All rights reserved.
Whether you're a big, medium, or small business, managing and growing the bottom line is important. Focus CFO brings the experience and financial acumen of a Fortune 100 chief financial officer to your company at a fraction of the cost. P&L help, internal reporting processes, or any business transitions or events. Focus CFO will help you and your team have a CFO in your company's back pocket. Focus CFO. Learn more at focuscfo.com.